Welcome to the Ambitious Africans podcast, where you get to steal timely tips to advance or switch your career, increase your income streams, and impact other young people you know. This podcast is home for you if you're a young professional or an entrepreneur who is passionate about advancing your career and building great communities. I am your host, Tupa Secho, a development worker in the entrepreneurship education space, a content creator, and a DIY sewing tutor. Support this podcast by giving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and if you're someone who likes to go the extra mile on things, then please share this episode with another ambitious African you know. Check in on Instagram, link up on LinkedIn, and see you on YouTube with the link in the description box below. Let's go into today's episode. Hi, Ambitious African. Thank you for coming again to the podcast. If you're new, welcome to the family. Welcome to Team Ambitious Africans. I'm super excited to have you join us for today's episode, and I really hope you stay. Today's episode is going to be another opinion I have about reading projects. I'm sure by looking at the title, you're like, what do I mean by I don't believe in reading projects no more? There are lots of things that have come to form this perception or this decision of mine. I think decision is quite a strong word, but this just has formed my opinion, and I hope you can stay as we unpack everything about reading projects and by extensively what it means to run a reading project and what it means to run projects similar to those, and why they are not really sustainable, and yes, what the alternatives are to make sure we make real impact that is sustainable. So stay with me whilst I ramble on why I think we should stop running reading projects and seek other ways to impact people. It will be fun. I hope to hear from you with a voice note from you. Obviously, send us a voice note sharing your thoughts and feedback on the topics we have discussed prior to this episode or even this episode, and let's engage. It's always about you, so let's engage. Thank you. And so for context, my experience with reading projects came at a very early point in my career and in my life. At the time, I had finished senior high school, and I was, for one reason or the other, I'm sure for those of us who are subscribers to this podcast and have heard me talk about my experience, I had to stay home 2 years before I went back to university, and those were one of the most difficult times in my life. I mean, in those 2 years, I would say that I squeezed a lot of opportunities out of that time, and it also gave me an opportunity to come face to face with what the gaps we have in our education, in our educational systems were. And that really inspired a lot of things that I did when I went to university, and then post-university, getting a job and starting other organizations or starting other initiatives by myself. I would say that reading projects, let me just give a disclaimer. I'm sure you would definitely expect a disclaimer, because why would I give such a very, top of the head statement and not give disclaimers? Well, the disclaimer here is these are just my opinions, and I'm always looking out to challenge how we do things, especially as people who always want to make impact. If we are coming from poor backgrounds or low-income communities, that moral responsibility or that moral burden of giving back is so huge that I don't think we fully assess what it really means. Okay, and I will always say those things impact what we call passion projects. A passion project is when you, that classic case where you learn something new today, you're like, I wish I knew this when I was 16, or I wish I knew this when I was young. Then you think for yourself, okay, then young people should learn these things too, because it will help them in the long run. So right there and then you say you're going to senior high schools or going to junior high schools to teach people this one skill or this one revelation you had because you want to do good. You have that moral burden to do it, and that becomes like your passion project. Okay, but this is just one definition of what a passion project could be. But the point is this, okay, when when we feel that moral burden to give back to our communities, whichever community we represent, either as low income youth, people from disadvantaged areas, people from marginalized or underrepresented areas, when you feel that moral burden to actually do something and you decide to start, the easy part is starting. The most difficult part is keeping it going. And that's the hard truth. So yes, you're so passionate about this, you're so motivated to make a change because you feel like it's urgent. You have to make this thing, you have to do this thing right now, right right here, and it would really go a long way to impact at least one person's life. All that vibe is fantastic. But before we even go into this conversation, the disclaimer here is that this is just to challenge you, and I'm no way trying to rain on your parade. I'm in no way trying to make you second guess yourself. Hell no. I really trust your heart. I trust the work you're doing. I trust that the things you are passionate about doing are coming from a very good place. And given all the things we've experienced in the past year with COVID and things like that, we should all think impact moving forward, even if we are capitalists. But then that's a disclaimer I want to give. I'm just expanding your perspective so that when you do decide to take on passion projects, and when you do decide to follow this revelation you have on impacting young people, you can see what I didn't see when I was younger, or what I couldn't fully understand when I was younger, when I was doing the same things, and then make a very informed decision on how to move forward and maneuver these decisions. That's my disclaimer. Let's go into the discussion already. So, like I said, after senior high school, I had to wait 2 years, and that 2 years gave me the opportunity to assess some of the gaps we had in our educational system in Ghana and maybe by extension Africa. I realized so hard how it was difficult for anybody to get back into the system if they didn't pass an exam, like a main exam that should progress them to another level. So let's say when you finish JHS, you have to take a final exam to move on to senior high, and same for senior high to university. When the opportunity came for people to write the exams, and they did write the exams but failed in Ghana, if they failed some of their core subjects, it was doom. And so that realization alone, or that knowledge alone, I must say, or I should say, is one of the most depressive realities most senior high school students have to grapple with when they are studying for their final exam. Like, literally, they know the stakes are high. If you're coming from a poor home, you know the stakes are so high, and the probability that you might not even continue to university is even higher, because if you're coming from a poor home, the probability of you going to a senior university, even if you did well, is very low. Okay, because your parents might not be able to afford it. Applying for scholarships is bridled with, protocol list. If you don't know anybody in the education ministry or somewhere, like, it's very tough if you're a poor person looking for opportunities like that. It's so tough. So most people want to just do what? Study hard, make the grades, and pray they have money to go to university, or rely on some, backup plan, either to find a job, or, there's so many things that come into your thoughts if you are in that stage of your life. And then you have to now try and focus on passing the exam itself, learning the exam itself. In most times when people are in these stage of their education, it gets really tough, because that's when your parents start preparing you to the idea that when you're done with university, you've actually done enough. Like, not all your mates, quote unquote, and I'm literally paraphrasing or quoting what you would usually hear, would be, oh, if you've been to senior high school, it's good enough. Like, most of your mates don't go to senior high school. Or like, oh, in the olden days, for you to even get to senior high school, it's a big deal. So once you're done, you should, think of getting a job and then contributing something to the family, and along those lines. It might not be the exact same thing, but you get the picture. So when people fail the exam, this is the weight of what it means. The fact that this one little ray of hope you had of probably having something to pitch for a scholarship, whether from friends and family or from any institution, is dashed, and you don't have any backup plan for that than to just look for a job and then manage life. That's a sad reality, serious. So when people fall out of that education system, it's very hard getting back. It's hard getting back because even remedial schools are so expensive. And you can't, it's one thing being in school and studying and passing an exam, but being home, having, responsibilities, working chores, working jobs, and then studying to make it back to God, it's not so easy. And I could be wrong. The statistics to show that more people, well, most people pass the exam in school than they do in remedial schools, and that even though lots of people sign up remedial schools, the percentage of people who succeed are really low. And even if they do succeed, the probability that they get very high grades is low. Okay, so if maybe you're in school, you could have got A's if you had rewritten the paper. Is juxtaposing that you being home and writing that same paper, rewriting that same paper with different conditions means you might make like a B or C, which is good. That is if you had a D or E in the previous paper. And so the probability that people will really exceed their grades or catapult themselves from their failing grade to like an excellent grade is something you don't really expect in remedial school. And that means that you might not even get your course of choice. And that's how the whole journey of sidestepping and toning down your dreams, that's how it begins. Having all these experiences and realizing that this could be my reality, that I might have to give up on my dreams and take on new dreams. I might have to compromise on some of the things I thought I could do when I was youthfully exuberant because I was in senior high school and then people were paying my fees. I now have to rethink those things. And I told myself, my goodness, this problem is so nuanced. It's so difficult for one person to solve, but I really want to do something about this. And for me, in my mind, my 18-year-old, 19-year-old mind was that if I can get people to pursue knowledge, if I can get them to look for, knowledge for themselves, to pursue self-education or self-learning, maybe they can't get back into the system as continuing students into the university, but maybe they can charter a new path for themselves by self-learning things that they would have learned in university. So that people who might have finished or dropped out of school, or the word is not dropped out but discontinue, students who might have discontinued school at the junior high level, if they were equipped with literacy and understood the import of what that could do in opening doors for them, then even if they did not make it into senior high or university, they still had something powerful to use to self-educate. And that's what led me to my reading projects. So I came up with this idea of a project. It was called Ashaiman Reads. It was a literacy program. We raised an amount of money on Facebook, speaking to people, raised an amount of money, raised books, and restocked a library in one of the communities. Actually, in the community school that we went to, even, they didn't have a library. It was their headmistress's zeal to see this happen for her students, that made her to repurpose one abandoned or an old classroom they had. They had even created shelves inside and things like that, but they didn't have books. And they said we're going to use that for a library, but they never got money to fund the books and purchasing books and things like that. And because we came up with the idea, it just fell right into the logistics they had already put together. We're able to do that. But they didn't really have a library. It was just an old classroom that they were trying to refurbish or renovate or repurpose into a library. And then they had done like 80% of the job. We just had to stock it with books, reprint it, and give it a new feel. And that's what we did. And that was because I was so passionate. And I would say that when I did that project, it brought a lot of attention to the gap that people in my community at Shineman were facing with regards to education. It also gave people more opportunities to support something good coming from that area, because the stereotype is, coming from a place like that, you don't see a lot of things like book reading projects. So when people saw book reading projects, like, oh, that's nice, I want to be a part of this, And then there was also the, feel good side that, oh, I'm contributing to something significant in the community and things like that. They're donating books and things like that, which was all fantastic. But the problem was not the reading project. The problem was what happened after the reading project. Okay, we couldn't continue the reading project because we couldn't raise funding. I mean, personally, I didn't want to run the model of seeking funding for the project, because I felt that was something I wasn't sure I wanted to do, because I didn't know what it looked like. The other thing was that I wanted so bad to build something that could self-sustain. And so I had to sign on to various programs and incubator programs to learn how the business of sustainability, the business of change looks like, and things like that. But that was the point. Okay, I came at some point, I was like, oh, we went through all this to raise money to buy the books. Now we have to go again to do something else for another school, or oh my God. And I didn't have like a team that wanted to do this in the long run. We were just volunteers who wanted to be part of one project. They didn't want to be part of a business of it and things like that. So we had to close our projects and then call it a day, which wasn't something I really wanted to do, but we just had to do it. That particular experience has taught me a lot of things. Okay, it taught me that one-off projects are not necessarily the one thing that, be all, do all, whatever term you might call it. It might not be the full package a problem needs in its solution. It also taught me that sometimes we can be very fixated on the PR side of these projects. We can be so excited about all the things we get to tell, all the stories we get to tell about the project, and say, oh, on International Reading Day or something, we gave out 20-something books to one child, and this will go a long way to fulfill SDG 4 and this and that. It makes us feel so good. It makes us feel like we are doing so well. But sometimes I feel like we have to always try and measure up the impact to the same level as the consciousness we pay to the PR side of these things. And this thing I'm talking about is not, I'm not the only person to observe this. This is an over almost a century-year-old problem that people still have to grapple with. But it is what it is, and I'm bringing it to your attention that sometimes the feel good of doing something for somebody, telling the world that you've done good for somebody, can override the fact that the person actually needs your attention in order to grasp the change you're trying to drive for them or drive with them. The attention we pay to telling the stories of that one project we did should equate to the kind of attention we give to understanding beyond the project, going back to monitor, going back to ask questions. Was this a solution that is treating the problem we saw? How is this translating to behavioral change in the students we are interacting with, on the people we are impacting, and things like that? And if you can do that even before you start the project, it can better decide what kind of project you should even decide on. It would even change what kind of project you even decide on, even if it's a one-off project. If you just decide that sharing books or reading or having a reading project that you can do on the long term, if you think that is the way to solve a problem, then I'm sorry, you shouldn't. Please don't do it, because you end up hurting the beneficiaries more than you had met them. So you give them books and leave, and then that's it? No. That is why I don't like reading projects. I seriously, when I see people doing reading projects online, I clap for them. I say, gosh, you're killing it. I hope you don't feel like how I felt at that time when I finished my reading project, and then I felt limited because I didn't have enough money, or I didn't have enough cash to continue something else, which I really wanted to do. I wanted a whole reading incubation project, or literacy incubation project, or an entire program actually that was teaching students leadership, entrepreneurship, and very vital skills they can use to propel themselves beyond their communities or their environment or their immediate conditions. Seriously, that's what I wanted, but we didn't have the money for it. And I was just a level 100 senior university student trying to even see if I can get my fees paid. It was so hard, and I felt so guilty that I just had to end at the reading project, which somebody would say was good. It was good, but seriously, think of it like that. You give a child a book and you don't get to read it with them, or you don't get to help them unpack whatever they are reading. You don't get to help them contextualize what they're reading. You don't get to use different opportunities for them to apply. You don't get to bring to them different opportunities to apply whatever they are reading or learning. If you can't do all that, holistic solution that a problem like literacy or illiteracy needs, I think you should relook at the project you want to run. What are some of the alternatives we can use to make sure that we are getting people to be literate beyond just books? And for me, one of the reasons why I ventured into entrepreneurship education as, let's say, a specialty was because I realized that, yeah, it was fuzzy and cute and nice and all that, getting people to read. But at the end of the day, it's the ability to make money, to earn, spend, save, and donate. That was really the crux of the matter. And when I realized the work that J.A. Ghana did or is doing, I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. This is exactly what I want to do looks like. And that's why I thought this was the most fantastic way, because I had seen people run reading projects online, and it looks so easy, it looks so cute, it looks so effective. But I'm telling you, it's not. If you're not going to if you're not going to create a buzz around the library, if you're not going to have somebody manage the library well, if you're not going to bring activities in the library, which all cost money, time, and resources, if you're not going to do all that, then don't start a reading project. Don't start. If you can't have it, yes, don't start. If you can't run it more than once after the book donation, please don't. Rather, put together a skill, a skill they can monetize project, or train them in a particular skill they can quickly monetize. Teach them that, than to do that, the reading part. That's why I think reading projects are a good way for people to feel like they are causing change, they are impacting people. It's nice to take pictures with those children in their school uniforms, pretending to be reading, or maybe they're actually reading, taking nice pictures, telling beautiful stories out of it. It's all good. But Charlie, let's go beyond that, because these people, that's what they want. They want the power to earn. They want the power to own their financial independence. And that's not even one that maybe that I'm skewed in saying that's what they want, but at the end of the day, they want a dignified life. And what does that mean for you as somebody who wants to cause change with them and not for them? What does that mean? How can you answer such a question for them and with them? Okay, so that's what I just said I would bring to your mind. Okay, people from most poor communities or young people from those communities are always facing that one big question, which is, where do we get the money from? Their grandma is sick, their mom is sick, they don't have food in the house, their sister just got impregnated by some dude, and so their hospital bills, there's no utility, there's no food. That's the one question. Where do we get the money from? That is it. No matter what they tell you when you are doing your case studies or analysis or problem analysis levels in these schools, whatever they're telling you, this is what they are actually saying. This is what it means. Whatever they're telling you, this is translation. It means, where do they get the money from? How do they get money? Like, how do they get money to solve some of these problems? You can't get past that problem. You can't get past that problem and think that reading projects will solve it. No. It could. But if you tied it to financial literacy as well, it would go a long way. I am so passionate about financial literacy because being able to earn money has been the most powerful thing I have done for myself. I have never ever felt this liberated and this independent about money my whole life. I've always had this silent fear of, we might not be able to afford this, so life can't go on the way I want. In fact, I didn't have any dreams and aspirations because we didn't have money. When people asked, I didn't have any. That's even a different discussion for another day, but money provides, or finances provide, a level of stability and potential for one to dream beyond themselves in a way that we shouldn't get past and belittle that, big problem. But yeah, that's what it is. The next time you have a reading project, maybe you should listen to this episode and share it to somebody who is very passionate about reading projects and things like that. And let's discuss. Charlie, send me a voice note. Do you agree about what I said? What have you experienced? Have you run a project like that and felt like you needed to do more, but Charlie, you didn't have money? Send me a DM, send me a voice note, and then let's discuss and let's engage. Thank you so much for once again coming to our episode. Stick and stay. Don't forget to check in on Instagram, link up on LinkedIn, and see you on YouTube. See you in the next one. Bye. Wow, you made it this far of the episode. That is super amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I don't take it for granted at all. And that is why I'm going to ask you to do me a big favor by giving us a 5-star review of this podcast. Please also reach out to us via all our social media handles. And yeah, send us a voice note sometime. I would really love to hear from you and share your thoughts on some of the things we discussed with the rest of the world. Thank you so much. Don't forget to check in on Instagram, link up on LinkedIn, and see you on YouTube in the subsequent episodes. Thank you and see you.